Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Bhakti Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, titled The Creative Impetus, Chapter 17, The Descent of the River Ganges, and we're on text 2. I'd like to have some fun.
Maybe we can all chant this one.
Transcendental
it's
fun.
It's not that difficult. No, I'm just kidding. Yatra vava vira vrata autanapadihi padama bhagavato smat kula devata chadanada vindodakamitiyam itiyam anusavanam utkrishyamana bhagavad bhakti yogena vidham klidyamananta vidya outkantya Vishvasamilata lochana yugala kudmala bigala tamala pashpa kaliya bivyadjamana roma pulaka kulako dunapi paramadurena shidasa bibharti
So, what should we do now? All right. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Dhruva Maharaj, the famous son of Maharaj Uttanapad, is known as the most exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord because of his firm determination in executing devotional service. Knowing that the sacred Ganges water washes the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Dhruva Maharaj, situated on his own planet, to this very day accepts that water on his head with great devotion. Because he constantly thinks of Krishna very devoutly within the core of his heart, he is overcome with ecstatic anxiety. Tears flow from his half-open eyes, and eruptions appear on his entire body. Purport. When a person is firmly fixed in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is described as Vira Vrata, fully determined. Such a devotee increases his ecstasy in devotional service more and more. Thus, as soon as he remembers Lord Vishnu, his eyes fill with tears. This is a symptom of a Mahabhagavat. Dhruva Maharaj maintained himself in that devotional ecstasy, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gave us a practical example of transcendental ecstasy when he lived at Jagannath Puri. His pastimes there are fully narrated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Om Ganatipadandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshuvan Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kaditavachalam Pangam Nangate Gidim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Niditaradam Vancha Kaptribhisha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. Dhruva Maharaj, the famous son of Maharaj Uttanapad, is known as the most exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord because of his firm determination in executing devotional service. Knowing that the sacred Ganges water washes the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Dhruva Maharaj, situated on his own planet to this very day, accepts that water on his head with great devotion. Because he constantly thinks of Krishna very devoutly within the core of his heart, he is overcome with ecstatic anxiety. Tears flow from his half-open eyes, and eruptions appear on his entire body. So, Dhruva Maharaj, the famous son of Maharaj Uttanapad, is a most favorite, glorified devotee of Krishna throughout history. Because of his firm determination. He had amazing, inconceivable amount of determination. And actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this particular pastime of Dhruva Maharaj was one of his favorites that he would ask Gadadhara Pandita. Do you think you get that Samadhi's book in that audio closet, please? Gadadhara Pandita, he would ask Gadadhara Pandita to recite this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj repeatedly. It's interesting. This is mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Thank you. It's mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that that Gadadhara Pandit would recite this pastime over and over again. But interesting enough, it doesn't really go into details why this was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's one of his favorite pastimes. It doesn't explain. But anyways, it was one of his favorite ones. Prahlad Maharaj as well. He would hear it over and over and over again and be in complete ecstasy. So in relation to Gadadhara Pandit, we'll just take a little detour and then we'll come back to the verse and purport for today. But it was Gadadhara Pandit's appearance day the other day. And because, anyways, I gave class and I didn't mention him because I'm a sinful rascal. But so I'll just read a little bit about him now. Gadadhara Pandit. Sri Gaur Hari, Lord Chaitanya, had so much affection for Sri Gadadhara Pandit that he couldn't be without him for a moment. He appeared as a year after Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, Gadadhar and Nimai, which is a name for Lord Chaitanya specifically in his early years, were inseparable as childhood playmates, peaceful, renounced, serious, self-composed, fond of solitude. Gadadhar proved quite a contrast to his bosom friend, Nimai, who was fickle, unsteady, and whimsical. In Gangadas's Pandit's school, Nimai regularly teased Gadadhar by challenging him with illogical questions. Sri Kavikarnapur states that in Vrajalila, Gadadhar Pandit is the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, Srimati Radharani. Gadadhar Pandit served as Lord Chaitanya's chief assistant during his Navadvip Leela pastimes. Shri Radha Krishna and Vrindavan appear as Gaura Gadadhar to perform pastimes in Navadvip in the forest groves beside the Ganges. No one can describe the characteristics and ecstatic love of Gadadhar Pandit. Therefore, another name for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Gadadhar Prananath, the life and soul of Gadadhar Pandit. One day, while wandering and sat in a meditative mood, soon he became enraptured, remembering his Vrindavan pastimes. To enhance the Lord's mood, Mukunda Datta began singing sweet songs. Sri Gadadhar made a garland of fragrant forest flowers and lovingly placed it around the Lord's beautiful neck. As Sri Radha used to dress Damodar in Vrindavan, similarly Gadadhar would adorn the radiant form of Lord Gauranga. He would also decorate Lord Chaitanya's bed and bedroom with sweet-smelling flowers. Every day he would make sandalwood paste to rub on Sri Chaitanya's transcendental body. Gaur Gadadhar sat on the root of a tree, serving as a raised dais. Sri Nityananda Prabhu sat on Lord Chaitanya's right. Srivas Pandit decorated them with flowers. Sri Advaitacharya offered artik. Nahari waved a chamara. Shuklambar offered chandan, and Maury Gupta sang the Lord's glories. Vijay, Mukunda, Purushottama, Madhava, and Vasudev Ghosh sang a variety of songs in different ragas. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his Nadia Leela. Gadadhar Pandit also took the renounced road of life and went to Jagannath Puri to be with Lord Chaitanya. Accepting Chaitra Sannyas, a renunciate who never leaves the Dham, he served the deity of Tota Gopinath with full love and devotion. Regularly, Sri Krishna Chaitanya came to relish Sri Gadadhar's rasic reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is in Puri. Lord Chaitanya would come and hear Gadadhar Pandit speak the Bhagavatam. And specifically, these pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj. Lord Chaitanya concluded his manifest pastimes by entering the deity of Tota Gopinath. Although Gadadhar Pandit was barely 48 when the Lord departed, Lord Chaitanya left, he quickly became old because of the intense anguish he felt in separation from his beloved Lord Gaurasundar. He couldn't stretch his arms to offer a garland to his deity. Understanding his servant's difficulty, Sri Tota Gopinath sat down to facilitate Gadadhar's loving service. So the deity was standing, and Gadadhar was so elderly, and he became elderly very quickly because Lord Chaitanya just left. He was feeling a lot of separation. So the deity was standing, and then the deity sat down so Gadadhar could put the garland on. There's not many sitting deities. I don't know if he's the only one. There's not many laying deities either, like laying down. You have, yeah, I've been there, yeah. Big, yeah, huge deity. There's that many, like in, what do you call it, Sri Rangam, you have, the laying Vishnu lying down. But most deities are, standing. Okay, well, it says here, to this day, Sri Tota Gopinath is the only sitting deity of Krishna. According to some authorities, a short time after Lord Chaitanya's disappearance, Sri Gadadhara Pandita joined his eternal pastimes by entering his beloved deity of Tota Gopinath. His Danta tooth, Samadhi, stands near the Vamsi Gopal temple in Vrindavan. So these samadhis of these great acharyas and personalities, their body is entombed, and sometimes not the body's entombed, but they also take like the tooth. It says one of his a tooth of his was entombed, and a samadhi was built, like a beautiful structure celebrating this personality's life. We also have flowers. Sometimes a flower is taken that the person wore and it's put in samadhi. They call that pushpa samadhi. So Danta samadhi, pushpa samadhi. So yeah, that's a little bit about Gadadhar Pandita. And devotees could visit that temple in Jagannath Puri. If you go, or when you go to India, you can, when you go to Mayapur, from Mayapur, I think you have to go to Kolkata first, but maybe not. I think maybe you could just go from Navadvip. Anyways, you take a train, overnight train. It'll take you to Jagannath Puri. You go to sleep at night, and you wake up in Jagannath Puri. And in the town of Jagannath Puri, you could visit this particular temple of Tota Gopinath, in which this beautiful deity is there. And it's right across the street from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's guru's, a place where he would spend time. They have a Gaudiya Mat there, a temple, and they have sand dunes there. And it's explained that that's the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would see these sand dunes, and he would, in his ecstasy, think it was Govardhan Hill. He was in Puri, but in his ecstasy, he was thinking it's Vrindavan, and he would run towards these sand dunes, thinking it was Govardhan Hill. So where that Gaudiya Mat is, it's near those sand dunes. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would spend a lot of time, or he spent some time there. He has a room there. You could visit his room where he spent time. And actually, you could stay there. The Gaudiya Mat, they have many rooms, and you could rent a room there. That's where we stay while we're in Puri. Watch out for the monkeys, though. They're getting close to attacking me, but I won't tell you that story now. In Jagannath Puri. Never in Vrindavan, but in Puri they were really intense, actually. So somebody saved me with a stick, but anyways. But you could rent a room there, and then right across the street from that place is this Tota Gopinath temple, where this deity is sitting down. And also at that temple, there is a deity of Balaram with his two wives, Revati and who's the other one? Huh? Who's Revati and who's the Balaram's other wife? Revati? Huh? Varuni, yeah. He's saying Varuni. Anyways, one of Balaram's. So deities there also. So, and the devotees are very kind there, very nice. They're very welcoming to guests. And around the temple room, there's these beautiful paintings of Lord Chaitanya's Leela, the different Lord Chaitanya's Leela. And devotees could go there and they'll let you lead kirtan. And so we led some kirtan while we were there with Tirtha Maharaj and myself and a few other brahmacharis. So Gadadhara Pandit, he would recite this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj to Lord Chaitanya, which Dhruva Maharaj is being mentioned here today. And again, it's one of his favorites, so that tells us something. It should be one of our favorites too. So Dhruva Maharaj, it said he's the son of Uttanapad, and as explained in the Bhagavatam, that this principle of you could say the human principles that we see, means the principles by which humans operate nowadays. These principles have been working and controlling people since time immemorial. For example, Uttanapad, he had two wives, at least, maybe more. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that generally within, or as a principle, that for whatever reason, there's more women than there are men. And therefore, Vedic civilization would allow, specifically Kshatriyas, to accept more than one wife, because the injunction is also that women should get married for the matter of being protected, and just it's their nature, it's built within them to be in that situation, to be married. So not as a matter of exploitation, not as a matter of exploitation, but as a matter of protection and a matter of just there being more women, and some of the men also stay brahmacharis, so who's going to marry them? So the kings would accept more than one wife. But they actually had the facility to do that. It means the wealth, the palace, and etc. to do that. So King Uttanapad was one of those kings who had more than one wife. And one of them, their name was Suniti, which means very virtuous, right? And the other one, Suruchi. Suruchi means very attractive, very beautiful. So Suruchi, son, was sitting on the king's lap. What's the son's name? Suruchi's son's name? Uttam, yeah. Uttam was sitting on the king's lap, Uttanapad's lap. And then Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to join, right? Natural. His heart was overflowing with affection for his beloved father, Uttanapad, which also, it's not that Uttanapad, he's a great king. He wasn't just some ordinary guy. He's in the Bhagavatam. He's a great king. So, but anyways, Dhruva Maharaj had a lot of affection, so he wanted to join his brother Uttam and sit on his father's lap. One sitting here, one sitting here. So then, while he was going to climb on his father's lap, Suruchi, the more beautiful wife, she said, "No, you can't do that." And she said, and she gave the reason that, well, actually, because you're not my son, like biological son, if you want to sit on your father's lap, you have to die and then take take birth in my womb, from my womb, and then you could sit in your father's lap. And apparently Uttanapad, he overheard this, and he didn't say anything. They say silence means agreement, or if you see something injustice and you don't do anything, you could actually be punished for that. Like if something's, what do they call that when something's happened on the street and you don't do anything about it? Yeah, criminal negligence. Someone's being attacked on the street and you just kind of keep on walking. You could be, the police, you could get in trouble. So he didn't say anything. So not only was he harshly treated by his stepmother, Suruchi, but he was also harshly treated by his father, by neglect. Not by words, but by neglect. So both of those were like, like a sharp, right, jab to him, and sharp knife in his heart, both of those. And he became very angry, actually. He's a Kshatriya, so Kshatriya means they got some fiery, blood within them. They're ready to, Kshatriya means warrior, they're fighters, so they have some. So he became angry. And he actually wanted revenge. He wanted to get revenge. And then he asked his mother, "What should I do?" He asked his mother, Sunita, very virtuous, and she said, "Oh, well, you could go to, maybe God will help you. Maybe Krishna could help you." "Oh, well, where do I find God? Where do I find Krishna?" So, "Oh, well, sometimes sages, they go out to the forest, right? So you could try to go out to the forest." And then he just did it. He left, which is amazing because it said he's like, 5 years old, young, and just leaves. So that's the first determination, that just leaving home. It's not so easy to leave home. Some people just say, "Oh, well, all right, I'll just stay here and, I'll let them abuse me, right? Or I'll just accept this mistreatment, right?" But he left, which is something that should, in not all cases, be done necessarily. Every case is different, but in some cases, just to leave a situation is good, is actually honorable. So that's what he did. But his aim was he was going to get a greater kingdom than his father and his great-grandfather and his great-great-grandfather. Just a huge kingdom. So not only did he didn't have some small material desire. It's not like, "Oh, I'm leaving my father's palace and I'm going to go get a small apartment, nearby, and I'm going to come to the palace for lunch, when my father's sleeping, and have some prasadam or something." He left and to the forest, but he wanted a inconceivably huge kingdom. So that was a really big material desire. So then he left, and then he met Narada Muni, and Narada Muni was asking him, "What are you doing out here, my dear boy?" This and that. And Dhruva Maharaja told him about what he wanted, and then Narada Muni said, "Okay, well, you have to engage in this bhakti yoga, and specifically chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya." And it's interesting because Dhruva Maharaja, Narada Muni, he knew Dhruva Maharaja's desire. He knew that it was a huge material desire. And Narada Muni knew that by chanting this mantra, his consciousness would be transformed. Means he would give up his material desires. But he didn't exactly tell him that. He just said, "Chant this mantra, it will fulfill your desire." Right? And of course, if we have material desires, we should still serve Krishna. It's not that, "Oh, well, I have material desires, let me go join the Kali Yuga reject circus." Let me go join the circus, right? Circus means a bunch of clowns jumping around. Let me go join the circus because I got material desires. And then when I get free of my material desires, I'll come back to Krishna. Well, you may not come back to Krishna. Yeah, the only way you can get rid of them is by surrendering to Krishna. Akamo, savakamo, va, mokshakamo, dadadi, tivrena bhakti yogena. What's that word? Yajeta? Yajeta purusham param. Yajeta purusham param. So akama means no material desires. Sarvakama, all material desires. Mokshakama, desires of liberation. All of these, that pretty much covers everyone. But all of these personalities, they should do what? Tivrena bhakti yogena. They should engage in intense devotional service. Udara-di, yeah. Yeah, you have to be really intelligent. Udara-di, tivrena bhakti yogena. So that's the process. It's not that, oh, I have material desires, let me just run towards them. But we don't want to do that. But we engage in Krishna consciousness, and the material desires gradually diminish to the point of nil, and then they're gone. So Dhruva Maharaj, he started engaged in the process of devotional service. And another thing we could learn from this is that when we're serious, when we're determined, then the spiritual master appears, or it becomes clear. The guru appears in our lives, right? Like Narada Muni appeared in Dhruva Maharaj's life when he was serious. And then there's that verse, Brahmanda Brahmatikon Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij, that the soul wandering from species to species, planet to planet, and then different situations. But when they become Bhagavan, fortunate, then they come in contact with the spiritual master. And by the grace of the spiritual master, they're connected with Krishna. So by the mercy of Krishna, they come in contact with the Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, they're connected to Krishna. So Dhruva Maharaj was given the process of chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and he was doing this severe fasting. I think Vijay Prabhu was mentioned the other day. First it was like leaves, and then it was, I don't know, bark. It was like really austere diet. You know, sometimes the brahmacharis think there's austere diet here. So, oh no, oatmeal again, right? For breakfast. I feel like I'm in prison, right? But Dhruva Maharaj, it was like inconceivably austere, and eventually it was just surviving off the air. You know, what do you call it? Breath. What do you call that? Breatharian. So then, due to his austerity and the demigods and people, they started feeling, I think the air, their oxygen started to decrease. Yeah. Yeah. So they were being affected. So then, eventually, Lord Vishnu comes, and he, on Garuda, the back of Garuda, and he appears before Dhruva Maharaj. And Dhruva Maharaj opens his eyes, and he sees Lord Vishnu. And he's a young boy, so he hasn't, studied a bunch of Sanskrit, and the whole Bhagavatam's in Sanskrit, so he hasn't studied, right? And learned prayers and this and that. So he didn't know what to say. He didn't exactly know what to say. So then Lord Vishnu, with his conch shell, he touched his head. And then when he touched his head, then he started saying all these beautiful prayers. And one of the prayers that Srila Prabhupada quotes often, maybe you could say that, Dhruva, to prove it in Sanskrit.
Prabhupada usually quote the last line of this for us, but it's Stana Bilashi Tapasistitoham Tvam Praptavan Deva Munindra Guyam Kacham Bichinvan Abhidivyaratvan Swaman Katartosmi Varang Nayache. Now this one is not in the Bhagavatam, it's in another Purana, but Prabhupada always quotes it.
Yeah, you want to say that?
Well, yeah, Stana Bilasi means I wanted a position. He wanted to get the kingdom greater than his father's, And therefore I was situated in great tapasya, tapasistitoham. But now I've gotten you. Vishnu has appeared before him on Garuda, Tvam Praptavan Deva Munindra Guyam, who are hidden away even from the greatest devas. In other words, leading demigods can't see you like this. So now I realize that monarchy I wanted, the kingdom, was like a little broken glass compared to this divine jewel of your darshan. And then the last line is kind of, Swami, oh my Lord, I don't want anything else. Yeah. Now I don't want anything else.
Yeah, now I don't want anything else. So he said, I was after this position, and I was engaged in all this tapasya, and then, then Lord Vishnu appeared, and he was, like he said, he was searching after broken glass, and then he realized, oh, this Divya Ratna, right? It's a Divya Ratna, this divine jewel, of your darshan. And now I don't want anything else. So, and sometimes, anyways, upstairs, I was brushing my teeth, and I look down from the window, and there's something in the parking lot. It's like shimmering. I'm like, what is that down there? I was thinking maybe it's something valuable, or it's like it keeps on shimmering in the wind, and I look, and it's just. Eventually, I realize it's just some plastic, like candy bar wrap or some wrap, So it wasn't anything of a value. But much of actually all the products of Maya, you could say, all the Mayic forms of this material world and desires and so on are just like that. Just like, it's a shimmering, but then with a closer look, or with eyes opened by the torchlight of knowledge, we see that this is just it's not valuable at all. So Dhruva Maharaja, he wanted something, but then he realized, this isn't valuable at all. But it's interesting, even though he realized that, later in the pastime, Krishna gives him all that. He gives him the kingdom, and he's Dhruva Maharaj, Maharaj king for a very long time. It's described. And then so sometimes Krishna may fulfill the desire even after devotee makes it clear that they don't want it. And they say, well, why is that? Well, one reason is that Dhruva Maharaj, by seeing his example, or devotees like him, we see how they deal with opulence. Because we need two examples, right? One example is that how do devotees deal with hardships, with difficult situations, when they're put in difficult situations? So great devotees are put into difficult situations so the general people could see what's a Krishna conscious way, right, to deal with hardships, difficult situations. And then the question is, how do we deal with opulent situations? How do we deal with situations in which, by karma, by destiny, by Krishna, we're in some opulent position? Well, great devotees are put in that situation as well, because then the general population will learn, okay, this is how I'm supposed to operate. So Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted it for revenge, this great position, as a revenge against his father and his stepmother. But then he still got it, but his consciousness transformed. And instead of wanting that for his own sense gratification, his own pleasure, or the pleasure of revenge, Krishna still gave it to him, but Krishna said, now you engaged it in my service. So that's what happened. But he was this Vira Vrata, fully determined. So we have to be Vrata, we have to be determined, we have to make up our minds that, okay, I'm on this path, and I've made a certain amount of progress, so now I need to make more progress, and now I need to be really determined to do that. And it'd be very determined. And like Srila Prabhupada, he was very determined individual, devotee, pure devotee of Krishna. And actually in his horoscope, they said, this boy, when they got the horoscope when he was a young boy, they said, the astrologer said, this boy will go through fire to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. So in other words, he's not going to give up. So that's the idea, that we have to have that mood of not giving up. Because as soon as we give up, you know, it's like we're in a boxing match or something. You're in a jiu-jitsu fight, right? You're in a he practices jiu-jitsu, Stevie, but you're in a teaches it also. But you're in a jiu-jitsu fight. You're fighting with someone. You give up. I don't know if there's some rule, then the other person gives up or whatever, but for the example's sake, you give up and the person just, he wins. They get you, right? And you can't even, but the thing is, you can't even give up mentally, because part of giving up is giving up mentally. Because people say, hey, I haven't given up. I'm still here in the temple, and I'm doing my service, and I'm chanting my rounds, and I'm doing everything. But okay, well, what's going on upstairs? Did we give up? Is our mentality like a quitter mentality? Have we really given up on ourselves? Oh, I can't be Krishna conscious. I can't spread Krishna consciousness. I can't shoot. I'm just going to do, what I can and just... Yeah, muddling through. So not only like devotional service, it's not only performed with the body, right? But it also has to be going on in the mind. What's going on in the mind? So determination comes from hearing about Dhruva Maharaja and great devotees like him, and associating with other devotees. Hearing, right, Srimad Bhagavatam, and chanting, and engaging in the process of different processes of devotional service, we get more determination. But we should always remember that it is one of the most important qualities to have, especially when we're trying to make progress in Krishna consciousness, because it's not always exactly going to be easy. And lastly, there was when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on tour, he was converting all these different personalities, right? Buddhas and this and that. So eventually he came in contact with these Buddhists. And somehow or other, it seems that there was some kind of ill feelings toward Lord Chaitanya, some envy. So they actually arranged that... Huh? There was a debate. Yeah, there was a debate. Yeah, Lord Chaitanya defeated these Buddhists in the debate. And what these Buddhists did is they arranged that Lord Chaitanya would be given some abominable food, as if it was like prasad or something. And it doesn't describe what that abominable food was, but anyways. So while it was being brought to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what happened is this huge eagle, I believe an eagle, came and swooped down and got this plate and abominable food, and then went high in the sky and it was flying, and then it dropped the plate right on the Buddhist leader's head. Just like bam, hit his head, and he fell unconscious. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the followers, the disciples, they went to Chaitanya. Oh, what do we do? What do we do? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Well, chant Hare Krishna in his ear." So he went there and they chanted Hare Krishna, and Prabhupada explains that the disciples became like the guru, and I'm sure they got love for Krishna as well. But okay, and they gave up their nothingness. All right, does anybody have any questions or
one thing?
Comments?
As I mentioned, that verse that you asked me to chant, a prayer that Prabhupada would always chant, the last line of maybe mostly. Is not in the Bhagavatam, but there's one very beautiful prayer in the Bhagavatam to Vishnu, which I'd like to share. Because a lot of times these prayers, there's always these prayers, Dhruva, Prahlad, Kunti, there's so many prayers. They're teaching us how to pray. So he says, to Vishnu. Bhakti mahupavahatam tvahime prasango bhuyadananda mahatam amalashayanam. Yenam disobhanamaru visanam bhavabdim neshe bhavadgunakatam atapana. O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly as the waves of a river constantly flow. Such transcendental devotees are completely situated in an uncontaminated state of life. By the process of devotional service, I shall surely be able to cross the nascent ocean of material existence, which is filled with the waves of blazing fire-like dangers. Somehow that's always sticks in my mind, that phrase. Blazing fire-like dangers. Yeah, the ocean of material existence. I'll be able to cross it easily. How? It will be very easy for me be very easy for me to cross it for I am becoming mad to hear about your transcendental qualities and pastimes which are eternally existent.
Amazing. I think you want the reference for that.
Yeah, this is Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 11.
4.9.11.
Yeah.
4.9.11. 4.9.11. Yeah, it's a important one thing that was being brought up in the verses to, he wants association of great devotees. And association just doesn't mean, we live in the same building together and, he's my next door neighbor in the ashram and or we live in the same building or community together. But association means to, right? Machita magata prana bodhyantas parasparam katayantas shamam nityatu shanti cha ramanti cha, to gather together and enlighten each other with Krishna Kata, messages of Krishna, and this way feel great pleasure. Or else it's not exactly association. There might be some benefit, like, you walk through the hallway and you see the person wearing tilak and you get benefited. Or the person says Hare Krishna to each other. There's some benefit, but there could be a lot more. And therefore, it's not that, I become initiated 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and then the universal principles or the Krishna conscious principles in which I operated before I got initiated, now they change. Meaning that, tadvidhi pranipatena, we should humbly approach and serve and inquire, right, from the spiritual master, the spiritual master's representatives, the devotees. I did that before initiation, but now I'm not going to do that. Now, I'll do some service, I'll do some, service, but still the inquiring has to be there. It's not that we get initiated and then we just stop inquiring. That's why Bhagavatam class is here. That's why the Bhagavatam's here. That's why the Chaitanya Charitamrita is to inquire and to ask. And how do I advance? I'm struggling with this particular obstacle. How do I advance? That's called inquiry. And that should be an ongoing thing. Like, what's the next step? What do I do? Do I go this way, that way? So that has to be remembered as well, because we're getting some devotees who will be initiated soon, like Dimitri. He found his spiritual master, right? Chaitanya Chandra Charan, right? Prabhu. So, all right. Does anybody? Yes.
Time, but I just was glancing through the purport, and there's some famous words in the purport. If I could just read a little bit. As you were saying, transcendental devotional service cannot be complete and cannot be relishable without the association of devotees.
This is in Tadvidhi?
No, this is in the purport to 4.9.11.
Okay.
We have therefore established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone who is trying to be aloof from the Krishna Consciousness Society and yet engaged in Krishna consciousness is living in a great hallucination, for this is not possible. By this time, the fourth canto, you can kind of see the history of this now. There have been some devotees who left and started their own thing.
I think your microphone got muted.
By this time, some of his sannyasis had left and this and that. So Prabhupada is trying to hold it. He's making these points.
Oh, this is the purport to 4911.
This is the purport.
Wow.
Yeah,
amazing verse and purport.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because he's praying to associate with devotees, so it's all about that. Yeah, really important.
Wow. All right. Are there any Zoomers who would like to?
Tapas Prabhu?
Yes?
Yes, go ahead. Vijay Prabhu.
Okay, Balaram Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. My question is, in accordance with Shastra, what is the most powerful temptation to be faced by a fully determined devotee?
The most powerful, what is it?
Temptation.
Most powerful temptation to avoid?
To be faced, because if Maya sees that you are fully determined, she will do her best in order to block you.
Yeah, I see. Well, I mean, you could say it may depend on the individual, but there are general principles. Like I read something. Well, there was this one tyrant politician. I don't know. I forgot their names, and it doesn't matter, right? But anyway, she said something like, "Oh yeah, sex, that's nothing. A powerful position that that's really intoxicating. But I read something recently. I think it was Krishnadas Babaji, Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, who he was, very dear godbrother and great disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He would quote often this Bengali verse, which is describing that, a Vaishnav is a person who is free from the desire for nadanam, najanam, nasundarim, kavatam va, jagadisha kamaya. It means they're not controlled or not attached to desires for women, desires for money, and desires for some position, some enjoying some important position or something, and desire for liberation. So those are the general things. And yeah, if Maya may say, okay, well here, let's put a temptation of opposite sex, right? All right, well, that doesn't work. All right, well, let's put the temptation of money. All right, well, that doesn't work. All right, let's put the temptation of, prestigious position. All right, well, we got him there, right? We got him, Like I asked Dravida Prabhu one time about, one of the hardest anarthas to give up. And he said pride, because you may be able to give up, kama, krodha, lust, anger, greed, all these different things. But then you say, oh, well, I'm proud, that I gave it up, Like one devotee was telling me, he was, the tendency, okay, well, look at these people, I'm better than these people, because I've given all this up. And that could be the case sometimes. So that's another thing, like pride. But there can be a point where, okay, Maya presents this, and none of it really works. That means a person has overcome that. But still, they shouldn't feel that, yes, I'm free from it. They should still be careful, right? But Devamrita Swami gave a good example one time about Maya. Of course, we have great respect for Maya, and she's a great devotee of Krishna. But sometimes as an example, he said that Maya, for a devotee who is made a particular amount of advancement, she's like one of those little dogs barking. Now, they're barking at your feet. They can't exactly do much, but it is irritating, it is annoying, and they're kind of like barking like, hey, get going, and you kind of feel like, okay, I'm going, and then they kind of keep on following you, okay, I'm going. So it's like you're going towards Krishna, and just kind of barking, okay, I'm going, something like that. So anyways, I hope that
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu. Wonderful answer to my question. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. All right, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So tomorrow is text 3. Sriveda Prabhu will give the class. And then Vijay Prabhu will give the class.